Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rebellious Counselor, formerly Liz Live. Good evening, everybody, on this pre-Christmas evening. We're just almost there to the big holiday, and there's so much to talk about tonight because, people go crazy at the holiday times, families fight, they argue. And on top of it all, we have COVID spiking big time, at least down here in Miami. And so there's lots of things to talk about. And I was going to go through, like I used to, all the numbers and all the ratings and all the statistics about COVID. And I decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that because you get enough of that on all the news. So what would be the point of me regurgitating all that at this point? Because we know that unfortunately it is spiking. And from what I've been told by medical professionals that are friends and clients, basically the coronavirus from really 2 years ago that started wants to mutate and survive. And that's what viruses try to do. So as we figure out more ways to kill it, get rid of it, treat it, it's very highly intelligent, the virus, and it's starting to morph, which is why we had the Delta variant, and now we have the Omicron variant. The really good news, is that the symptoms of Omicron, while they're extremely contagious, are not nearly as deadly or as bad as the first round. So each variant that comes out seems to be a little bit less scary. So I think that's something good to focus on, and that we also have so many treatments for it now that we didn't have 2 years ago or a year and a half when things really went crazy. But nonetheless, it's definitely out there. And so it poses the question, what to do about the holidays. And you know that this is going to start a bunch of arguments in families about who's allowed to come, and are they vaccinated or aren't they vaccinated, and where have they been, and the same stuff that unfortunately we were dealing with last year is back again. So we have to talk about it, and we have to remember to keep our brain maintained, keep our head in check, keep our anxiety in check, because the holidays tend to bring up a lot of turmoil anyway, emotionally, because the holidays are definitely hallmark milestones in the year. And, they're very nostalgic. They make us think of people that maybe we lost to COVID last year, or that we lost to just old age or to some other illness last year. And we don't have them for the first time this year. And we're really thinking about them, and we're lonely. Or maybe we're going to be missing our families this year because, some families may choose not to gather. Some people will. I think that families should do whatever is, most comfortable for them. But I do think that for a place down here in South Florida, like where I am, where people can be out and about all the time, I'm definitely trying to be a little more careful than usual this time around, because of just the rate of contagion it's high. So again, while the symptoms seem to be mitigated, and whether that's just because the virus is morphing, or if it's the vaccine, or a combination of both, who knows? We're never going to really know. So I think the best thing that we can do is be smart and stay away from really crowded places, and stay away from places where you're going to be on top of people. But of course, when it comes to the family, there's a lot of big decisions that have to be made this year, and made fast. And I've already heard about people, thinking about canceling their holidays, changing things around. And, that's automatically going to fuel a couple of things. And, at the risk of sounding a negative, because I don't want this to be a negative show, there is a reality that when things with the coronavirus start to flare, they're usually triggered by some sort of increase in rates, although the death rates are still very low compared to the way they were last year. But we have this contagion rate that's up. And here come the politics, right? Because automatically people are going to start kind of dividing on, the way that they feel about the virus and how scared they are of the virus, how serious they're not serious that they feel about the virus. And, we could have some potential family feuding going on just over that, not even getting into all of the other things that happen at families, So guys, if you're one of those people that's not sure what you should do or what you shouldn't do about the holidays, I would say the first thing to do is to calm down and relax, because this is something that really we can't control what's going on around us in our environment. We can only control our response to it. And we all have the ability, hopefully, to make sound decisions and choices about what we want to do this year. And, obviously, if you're traveling, and you already have those plans, likely that you'll continue with those plans. But I think a lot of people that are in the same cities and the same states might want to, from what I'm hearing from clients, they want to cut back on how many people. The same thing we went through last year. I could take the violin. But we should be better prepared this year, right? Because we should know from what we've already been through that there are creative ways of being careful. And you can always, to me, the simplest thing to do is to go get a PCR test, go get a COVID test a day or two before your holiday, and don't go anywhere for 2 days. How hard is that, right? It's not that hard. We're talking about tomorrow night into Saturday, right? Everyone can stay home a day or two. I mean, my God, we did it for 3 months last year. So we can be smart. We can do it that way and remain calm, which is my recommendation. Of course, you can stay home. You could cancel, and you can reschedule your Christmas or your, holiday celebration maybe in a couple of weeks once things seem to calm down a little bit. Or you can go ahead and proceed. I mean, it's nobody's choice but yours. And if it's your home and it's your body and it's your mind, you get to decide what you want to do with it. And a lot of people are going to continue as normal because they want to go and live their lives and be with their families. And I think that's beautiful. And a lot of people are going to be scared and they're going to want to stay home. And I can understand that too. So let's try not to do what we did last year, which was fight over everything and everyone's choices and everyone's decisions, and be respectful, because last year so many family relationships were lost and broken up just because of people's political views and just because of COVID. I saw a lot of that, and let's not have a repeat. I'm not hearing that it's as bad as last year, but I know in certain states aren't having a problem right now, but certain states are, certain cities are. And so you just want to be mindful to think for yourself and be respectful of other people's choices. And it's a shame that I even have to say that, but I do, because traditionally we haven't been so much over these topics. And for God's sakes, don't talk about politics at the holiday table. Don't do it, because somebody at the table is going to disagree with you and someone's going to get offended. And, to me, it's like, don't do it, right? Because it's not just about you and what you want to say and your beliefs. It's about everyone who's at the table. And if you know that maybe half the table or half the people at that holiday celebration agree with you, keep it there. I mean, we can put down the politics for one night, right? Or 2 nights, or for a week, can't we? Just so that we can have a smoother experience. I mean, I think we can. I know I can. And I would like to think that most of us are mature enough to be able to do that. So that would be, my most important recommendation is just don't talk politics. Don't even bother, because it's not going to go well for you, because there's always that one person at the dinner table that has to make a big deal and that has to get all crazy. And don't respond to that person because they want an argument. So if people are voicing strong political opinions, which, they will be at the dinner table during Christmas, you can choose not to get into it and make your life a lot easier. And it doesn't mean that you care any less or that there's anything wrong with you or you're not standing up for yourself if you just let it go for, 24 hours or a week or whatever your holiday plans, wherever they're taking you, right? I mean, like, come on. So let's try and stay away from the politics, try to keep our opinions to ourselves to some degree in order to make the greater whole feel kind of comfortable. So I think, if there's one piece of advice you walk away with tonight, that's a really important one. And I think I've actually discussed this. This will be the third year now talking about this. That's how long all this craziness has been going on in this country. So we got to remember to just keep it to ourselves a little bit. Second thing I want to talk about is overdoing it on the holidays. The holidays, the next 10 days, next week are going to be, crazy, fun times, partying, going out, maybe not as much as we thought, but there's going to be get-togethers and all kinds of fun things. And there's going to be a lot of temptations. And everyone likes to drink during the holidays, including myself, right? I like to have a glass of wine or two, maybe three, depending on the evening and who's driving. But I definitely enjoy, partaking in a little partying during the holidays. But when you add alcohol to a tense situation, or too much alcohol to a tense situation, it exaggerates everything, right? So if you think about the worst fights that you've had with your spouse or your partner, it's probably been while one or both of you have been drinking, probably both of you, right? And so if you think about some of the arguments that are likely to go on at the holiday parties this year, the family between families and politics and COVID, and you add alcohol in there and you mix it up, it could get really, really bad. It could get really out of hand. So if you know that you're going into a hostile situation where a lot of people say, oh, I'm just going to drink and it's going to relax me. And well, not necessarily, because if you have one too many, and that's all it takes is one too many, which is easy to do on the holidays, you could be headed for a huge fight, for a huge argument. And we don't want that. We don't want that to happen. So know your audience, know where you're going, know the dynamics of the people at the parties where you're going, and know if, things are going to get tense. Don't go too far in on the alcohol because you're going to slip, you're going to say something you regret, and the whole table is going to be up in arms. I mean, every single year without fail, after the holidays, my calendar goes wild because everybody had unfortunately, these huge family feuds and so on and so forth that they had to, definitely get into on the holidays. And then they call for therapy because it can impact husbands and wives. It can impact anybody involved. So I think that that's something to really keep in mind and to be, careful of. If you're going into basically a calm atmosphere, then, maybe you don't have to worry so much. But alcohol definitely is like putting fuel onto a fire. It just amps up what you're already feeling. And that doesn't just go for the holidays. That goes for any day. So another tip about the holidays. And I really want to encourage people and give you guys some tips and some ideas on how to avoid arguments. Because I think that that's been the biggest problem in this country lately, and not lately, in the last 2 years, is that everybody wants to argue because everybody thinks they're right. And it's the human ego that makes us insist upon arguing and insist on being heard and insist on getting our way or our voice out there. And I think a lot of times people feel that if they don't stand up for their political views in all situations, that they're somehow, letting themselves down or letting their tribe down, right? Because politics is very tribal. right? And we used to run in tribes at the beginning of time because we needed the protection. And I think that the political divide, or the political parties, have become very tribalistic, and it's like you're in or you're out. And so people feel this need to argue about it all the time and prove that they're right, and prove that their views on COVID are right, or that yours are wrong. And it can really spoil a holiday, and it can really do damage to the family. And you'll have to trust me on this, because I do family counseling, I do couples counseling, I do individual counseling. So I've been hearing about it for several years now. And I do feel it's gotten a little bit better, a little bit. But just like alcohol is pouring fuel on a fire, COVID going up during the holidays is like putting fuel on the political fire, because for some bizarre reason, it's become sort of like a tribalistic political issue. So you either think about COVID like the Democrats, or you think about it like the Republicans. So which tribe are you? And so people get into these huge fights, and it gets ugly. I've seen it. You've seen it. We've all seen it. And so we have to be particularly careful in the next 10 days, because we're going to be around a lot of family and a lot of people that may have different views than us, that it's okay to put, hang the gloves up for a couple of nights in order to nourish the relationships in your family. And especially after we've had so many problems over the years with family fights and people losing friendships and not speaking because of their political views. The last thing we want to do is recreate that on some of the most, special weeks that we have in this country, to just kind of relax and enjoy life. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to have fun. It's okay not to argue. It's okay not to get into politics. It's okay not to take a stand on things sometimes, because, it's not always called for. It's not always called for. And you're not any less of a person if you're taking a neutral standpoint in a certain setting. So if you're on the debate team, or you're, lobbying, or if you're a commentator and you have to, for your job or for your living every day, or you're a journalist, whatever, you have to be involved and take a stand on politics, God bless you. But let's have the boundaries that when we are at family gatherings, we want to try and keep it as tempered as possible, especially because you don't know when it's going to be your last holiday with some of these people that you're going to be with this year. I'm sure there's aging people, and there's people you haven't seen in a long time. So you have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? And that's a little bit, I've always felt that, as passionate as I can be about politics, and I am, there's a time and a place. And the fact that we have lost, I think in some ways, our discernment as to when and when is not the right time is kind of sad. And yes, that's coming from a rebellious counselor, somebody who likes breaking the rules and shaking things up a little bit. But when it comes to politics and holidays and families, I think those things are probably best left untouched. And if somebody starts, and families can start arguments over anything. It doesn't have to be politics, right? It could be, families fight over everything. You always have a choice in that moment to get sucked into the argument or not. And so how do you know when you're getting sucked in? How do you know? Well, your body will tell you, because the way that we get sucked into arguments is because our physiology changes immediately, right? So as soon as we're offended, or as soon as we're hurt, our heart rate will go up. Our muscles will tighten. And this is the flight or fight system that is warning you that you're in danger, or that you're vulnerable, right? And so we have to be able to identify when that's happening in our physiology. And again, you can take this advice into your everyday life, not just politics in the holidays or big family gatherings in the holidays. You can take this, throughout the year in all of your close relationships, that when you're hurt or offended or your boundaries have been crossed. As soon as that heart rate goes up, your muscles get tense. And we all have a choice in that moment as to whether we're going to get sucked into that argument or we're going to take a step back. And even when you take a step back, that person might keep going. They might keep going. They might keep going. And so it does take some practice. So before you guys go to your Christmas Eve and your New Year's Eve parties and dinners and all of that fun stuff, think about what I'm saying and prepare yourself for the audience that you're going to. So if you know that, your father-in-law is a huge Trump supporter and you are a progressive liberal, know what you're walking into, and vice versa, right? I mean, know what you're walking into. And politics doesn't have to define us as people. Our stance on politics doesn't have to define us as people. It's just a little piece of the pie. And so remember, when you're around your family, that they're more than just their political views, whichever side they may or may not be on. And learn how to not get sucked into all of these arguments by learning to read your own physiology. And if you're too high or you're too drunk, you're not going to be able to feel your physiology properly. And you're much more susceptible and vulnerable to getting into altercations with other people. And that's a big reason why, because you can't really understand your own physiology because your mind's not clear. Hi, CS121 Loom. I see you all the time. How are you doing? Thank you for watching. You say you're definitely right. Keep it to a minimum. Why even go into that conversation when you know the person across from you may be more sensitive on a matter than you? It's time to love. I love that. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more. And hello, everybody on Instagram, and hello, everyone on Facebook. I don't know how to see your comments, so I might have to, in this new format, so I might have to peek on my phone. But yeah, I mean, it's human nature to fight. It's human nature to be, in a tribe, right? It's human nature to pick a side, but it's not necessary when you learn how to think for yourself. And when you're secure in your own thoughts and your own feelings, you won't feel as propelled to prove that to other people, right? And we can choose love and understanding over arguing, but so often we don't. So I think it's up to us to really, come to that place where, wait, let me turn down my volume, to really come to that place in order to, wait a minute, I'm sorry, to be able to, make it through the holidays this year without losing too many friends or too many family members. So, all right, so let's take it from the top. So we're talking about knowing your audience, right? What are you walking into this holiday week, this holiday season? If you know you're walking into a group of people where you already anticipate or you already know it's going to happen, then be prepared and be ready to not argue. And I've even given some of my clients some good lines, like, like people say, well, what do I say if mom brings this up or dad brings this up? And a lot of times, what I like to do when I get around people who are kind of negative and cranky is I try to just insert something positive. So if they say, oh, did you see the news? Everybody's dying from Corona. You could say, well, you know what? That, there's some sad things going on in the world, but I'm so happy that we're all together. Isn't this great that we're all together? And try to flip it off of the cranky negative statements, which you're definitely going to get, and try and insert something positive to it. And you'd be surprised how that can really diffuse a situation. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And check yourself. Sometimes, if you're going into a really volatile situation, you have to psych yourself up a little bit, right? There's certain family members that you're just like, oh God, I don't want to deal with them, or I don't want to hear their negativity or whatever. But you can prepare ahead of time for what you're going to say and how you're going to handle it. And so have a couple of stock lines kind of ready, or, you know what, I don't want to talk about politics tonight because, um, because I have other, there's so many other exciting things happening right now, right? Let's talk about something that makes us all feel good. And I think to some degree, we've all been really like so desensitized emotionally the past couple years because of the way things have been in the country. And we've forgotten to have compassion and understanding for other people that don't agree with us or that see things differently than we do. And this might be a really good time to work on that, right? Because the holiday season is supposed to be, I think, a joyful time and, a joyful season where we can relax, kick it back, take some days off work, spend time with friends, maybe socialize a little bit more than we used to and just do fun things. And it doesn't have to be filled with the argumentiveness and the arguing that so many families, unfortunately endure, and that I think that the COVID spikes are going to cause. So we all have that choice in every moment in our lives, but we will have a lot of those choices to make in this few weeks. So we want you to stay safe. Also, don't drink and drive, right? We all know don't drink and drive. Get a designated driver, take a Lyft or sleep over or something, but no drinking and driving, please. We know how dangerous that's going to be. And then the cops are always out. And so, you don't need, I sound like your mother, don't drink and drive. And just be careful about being around big crowds of people. Be smart and really ask yourself, this holiday season, when I'm around people, or maybe I'm not going to be around people, how can I really bring joy? How can I do that? How can I bring joy to maybe, a sad night because you're missing somebody, or you had to cancel your plans because your family members are afraid to be around other people? Or how do we do that? How do we make joy in what could be, a little bit of a sad holiday? Potentially, we don't know yet, but could be a little sad. And I think that, again, it's all a choice, right? It's all a choice that we have in actually every moment of every day. But the holidays, because everyone's so aware of them and so anticipatory of the festivities, that we have more of a focus and an understanding that we're going to highlight this time with joy and with love, just like, one of my viewers on Instagram suggested. So we can always turn a negative comment into something positive by turning away from it. Or I like to infuse something really positive. I challenge myself, and when people get political, I just kind of ignore it and I kind of just, shrug it off or whatever. And then think about what you can do that might uplift somebody, that might make people feel better, or, be more excited to be in your company rather than complaining or talking about negative things or watching the news all day to watch the death tickers and the counts of COVID cases, right? Because that's what the media is there for, to get you all hyped up and afraid to go meet your family and afraid to hang out with everybody. So what can you do to bring more joy to that evening? And I think that right now, everyone who's watching can stop and think about that for a minute. How do you bring joy to others? I know one of the ways that especially older people become very joyful when you pay attention to them, because so many elderly people, they get like ignored or forgotten about because they can't hear and they can't keep up with the conversation. So they kind of sit in the corner, no one talks to them. Make an extra effort to sit down with them and show an interest in them and what's going on in their lives. And again, that's not a rule just for, the elderly. That's, again, for anyone that you want to connect with, that you want to get to know. So instead of getting to know someone by asking them, how they feel about COVID, or, how they feel about the presidents or past presidents or whatever, try to make a conversation about something about them and make it a point that, okay, tonight at Christmas dinner or tomorrow Christmas Day gatherings, I'm going to find one new thing out about everybody that's going to be there. And you might be quite surprised at what you find, right? So even if you've been going with the same people for years and years, this year is going to be the year that I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And I'm going to try to find out one new thing about each person in this room. And you would be really surprised how that can change the way you think about people. And I've noticed that sometimes we're quick to judge people at certain points in our lives. And, I never liked Aunt Mary, but as you get older, you might find that you and Aunt Mary can connect on something that you never knew. Or your cousin John is in from college and you always thought he was a little weird, or say, well, go talk to him. You might find out something very interesting. And that's how we start bringing people together instead of separating ourselves during the holidays by talking about politics and bad things and, things that are negative, right? So we want to keep things on a positive vibe this year, especially because of what's going on in the world. And we really don't know. I really don't know. I'll be interested to see. I know that between yesterday and today, I can't tell you how many text messages I got from friends, family, clients saying, oh, I have COVID. My husband has COVID. My sister has COVID. My this has COVID. I don't know what's up with that because I don't remember it being quite like this before. I'm not saying I never heard of anyone having it, but it just seems like rampant, like everybody. So is that a factor of feeling that I'm having? I don't know. I didn't research enough for tonight. I didn't have time, but you can always do that on your own. And so I don't know what people are going to do, but I think people will make the best decisions that suit them. And that no matter what the decision is or how our plans may or may not work out, we can still choose joy. We can still choose to have fun. We can still choose to be positive and grateful that we're alive, that we have a place to celebrate or a home. Even if we're alone or we're not with family, we still have warmth and shelter, or in my case, air conditioning, if you're in Miami, although it's pretty cool out tonight, and that you have food in your refrigerator. And you can always be grateful and thankful for the little things. And I think that can really change the way you feel or your outlook on the world, especially since we might have a little bit of a at home type of holiday season once again. And maybe we won't, I don't know, but I think we will a little bit in certain states. And I think there will be people that will not be able to see their family and or choosing not to see their family, but we still have to find joy and hope. And we know that this moment is not forever, that it will pass and there will be more holidays to gather and be together, or you can go ahead and gather anyway, right? Whatever you choose. And don't be judging anybody for what they choose to do. Just try to see if you can get through, challenge yourself. Can you get through the next 10 days in peace? And try to focus on the positive things and the things that you do have in common with everybody rather than all of the negative things and the things that you don't have in common with everybody. It makes a big difference. It makes a very big difference. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up on the Rebellious Counselor. I thank you very much for watching. I am Elizabeth Statlander, marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor, Miami-based, but can see people pretty much from anywhere in the world at this point because of virtual. And I can be found at actuation-counseling.com. Elizabeth Statlander on Facebook, Eliz Therapist on Instagram, the Elizabeth126 on YouTube, and Actuation Counseling, making change happen on Facebook. So it's pretty easy to find me if you're looking for counseling or looking for help. I'm running a great special for people who want to give the gift of therapy. And you can check that out on my webpage. And I will not be doing a show this Saturday because of Christmas. So I will be back here next Wednesday evening, and we'll talk about what's going on in the world and New Year's resolutions and making changes and all kinds of fun things. But I wish everybody a very joyful, happy, loving Christmas holiday celebration or whatever you celebrate. And remember to put your best foot forward and to be grateful for all of the gifts that you have. And I'm not talking about the ones under the tree. Until next week, everybody, happy holidays and Merry Christmas.